Welcome to Hormones and Heels. Menopause and the $1 million mindset. Why midlife women are the new powerhouses. I'm Sandra, and this is my co-host Sabrina.
Sandra, did you know that 60% of midlife women try reinvent themselves, but very few succeed?
I'm not surprised, Sabrina. I think some women may lack confidence that they're not going to make it if they change career, or they're not going to have the right support system, or they may not have the right network around them to be able to shift to a new career. So we want to change that narrative today, don't we?
I think they're all three very important things. But today we're going to focus on the right network. And we have a very special guest here. We have Samantha Lawton.
Hi, Samantha.
Hello, girls. Ladies, women.
We are so happy and delighted to have you with us.
Thank you. I'm delighted that you asked me. I feel very honoured.
So let me just tell you a little bit about Sam. Sam is a true midlife trailblazer.
She is indeed.
Yeah, she's the networking queen. After leaving a career in hospitality in London, she invented herself as a hypnotherapist. And then from there, she started networking and really found her true passion, bringing people together, and specifically women. And in the last, how many years, Sam? 13 years. Sam has 12 groups of WIBN dotted all around England. Some of them are in London, which Sandra and I are part of too. And we want to welcome you, Sam, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. It's my absolute pleasure to be on my first podcast as such. So, excited.
You are our first guest as well.
The pressure.
So, Sam, would you mind taking us back to where you were in your 40s and your 50s and you changed career? What did it look like for you at that time?
Sure. I've kind of had a couple of reinventions. I often say one of them not so successful, but everything happens for a reason and everything leads on. So probably my unsuccessful one was in my mid-30s. As Sabrina said, I used to work in hospitality, loved my career. It was typical 20s, 30s, working hard, playing hard. And I got to a point, I think it was 35, when I was working till 4 o'clock every morning in my career. And there was a series of things happened, including a relationship breakup, a very sad suicide, somebody very close to me. And then also I laugh about it now, but I was involved in an armed robbery at work, and I was held at gunpoint.
That's pretty scary.
Yeah, that must have been terrible, right?
It's
experience.
It's something now I can almost turn it into an amusing anecdote. But at the time, it was one of those, and I know I could have been working in Topshop, for example, anywhere, and that happened. But I was working in the bar industry, and it was a real kind of, for me, a real moment of literally when I was being tied up and what am I doing? Where am I going? So before menopause hit, I ran off then to Australia and Thailand and did some volunteering and teaching English to kind of reinvent myself or work out what I wanted to do. And
so did you feel that going far away from here was a way to reinvent yourself?
Oh, that will be the answer. And then, of course, I take myself with me. So I'm just running away from me. I think we've all been there in different ways. So I ran off, and then when I was in Australia, I had some therapy whilst I was out there, and this psychotherapist really just helped me work through some stuff, and that was when I had I can be doing this at home, and I decided then that how that woman had helped me, I'd like to be able to help other people. So I retrained in psychotherapy and hypnotherapy, and I thought, this is what I wanted to do. And I think I qualified when I was 38, qualified. And I'm like, right, this is going to be my career. And it was very hard going to just that sense of reinvent myself, try and get customers. That's what I was focused on, because I'd never had to get customers before. And so I found networking. I kind of stumbled across networking, and that brought me customers, but it also brought me, it wasn't the customers. I went there looking for customers and I came away with community. I think that's what really happened. And
that's a very important word, right? Community.
Yes. Yeah.
So you at the time you built your community there?
Yeah, it really was. And the word sisterhood can get a bit bandied about and might sound a bit cheesy. But it was.
I don't think so. Was it or was it not?
No, it wasn't. It really was a sisterhood.
Yes.
And it was around women who got it.
Yeah. Like-minded women all coming together.
Who, same thing, and most of them were reinventing themselves. Not all of them, but I would say 80% of them were reinventing themselves. And for me, so I'm there, I've got this support, I've got people who are my cheerleaders, and as I did went to these lots of networking events, and at the time I wasn't married, I didn't have a family, so I was able to throw myself into anything and anything. I'll turn up, I'll go to that. That sounds fun.
So how did it lead you then basically to build like that?
To build it.
And to help women to rise, basically.
Yes. So I started falling out of love with private practice. I realised whilst I enjoyed being in therapy and I enjoyed training, I didn't really like being a therapist, which is a bit bizarre. And fortunately for me, an opportunity arose. So my business is a franchise, and an opportunity arose to buy the group that I ran. And I'm like, yeah, I can do that, a little bit on the side. And
everything happened for a reason.
Exactly. This is what I was thinking.
What we said before. Everything happened for a reason. And the woman who ran it's like, well, you used to work in hospitality and you've got the skills from being a therapist. You'd probably be good. I'm like, okay, I'll dabble at it. And as I was falling out of love with psychotherapy, I'm like, well, if I want to make a living out of networking, I'm not going to be able to do that with one group. I need to upscale this. So initially, it was just a business decision,
right?
And I'll run a few more groups. And as I started opening these groups in London, I started stepping away from the therapy, and I was just getting so much more from it.
Right.
I think for me, it was my strokes. Being around my people became my job, and I'm like, God, this is just brilliant.
Yeah.
And it didn't feel like work.
But it's a nice transition to what you were doing before. I'm sure you use your skills still and the wisdom that you gained from it.
Of course.
And it gave you the space to figure out what you really, to find your passion and what you really wanted to do.
Exactly. And then it was just like, okay, I'm going to run with this now. And so, when I graduated university, I didn't know such a thing as running a networking business was a job. And now I genuinely cannot imagine doing anything else because, and again, it sounds maybe a bit cheesy, I love being around other women like yourselves, other women with their small businesses who are the same reason I got into it in the first place. Yes, I want more business, but I need the connection, I need the support, I need to be around people.
And you don't always find those connections in, your girlfriends or, the school mums or like your social friends. Like sometimes, as in this case, like with business, you really need to go in with this common purpose. Like we're all connecting to talk about business and how to support each other and, to support ourselves.
Yeah, it's almost this sense of, you bring the business person, but you kind of bring the true person because there's no expectation on you. You're not seen as Sabrina the mum or Sandra the helpful daughter or the tennis pro from the. You are just seen as you because first and foremost you're you and you're the whatever your job is. You're the architect, but it's just seeing you. It's being seen.
I think it's that visibility, right? So Sam, tell us about the visibility. That's a big word, isn't it?
It's a huge word, and I think it's really important, especially in the conversation about menopause, because I'm sure if you girls haven't touched on it already in some of your episodes, you will be, and that whole invisible woman. And I know I certainly felt it when I went through the menopause. And, you know, hands up, still feel it.
But what makes you feel like that, you think?
I think there's lots of things. I think going through the menopause, it shouldn't be underestimated. It's kind of, there's a quiet loneliness there, I think, because we're transitioned. We've been, our families, maybe now they've left, or maybe they're certainly growing up. Maybe our relationships have changed. Maybe our careers have normally changed. Maybe we've been made redundant. But also our bodies are changing. And what we see in the mirror changes. And I think
that's a big one, though.
Yeah.
The person that we see in the mirror is not the person that we recognize anymore.
And it's kind of, maybe scary is not the word, but it's kind of a lonely, a quiet loneliness, I tend to call it. And also people like us, you know, it's getting better, but it's not visible in the media. You don't see people.
When I think, Sam, you know, we had spoken about this before, and I want you to talk a little bit more about it. But you know, your menopause journey, you know, it started in your like late 30s, and people definitely, you know, were not talking about it as much as they are now, and also maybe your girlfriends weren't going through, you know, the same chapter as you at that time.
Exactly.
And that can feel really hard when you're dealing with it alone.
Yeah. And it is. So I'm 54 now. And it is really interesting. Even just 5 years ago, the conversation wasn't as much on the table. And my mother certainly never. I haven't, to this day, I have no clue when my mother went through the menopause.
It was taboo, wasn't it, at the time?
It was just called the change. Oh, I think I remember my dad saying, your mum's going through the change. Like it was this, what is the change?
So she's not going from a caterpillar to a butterfly, but to something else.
This hideous thing, you know, and just kind of the lack of visibility of seeing people like us around, and then just a sense of feeling lost, just not knowing who you are anymore, because, as I said, you don't recognise the person in the mirror. You don't really know what your roles shifted so much, so it's hard to navigate, especially if there's nothing out there, and even when there is, even when the conversations on the table are much starting to get better, like it is now, it's still hard. It's almost having to be a little bit vulnerable to admit that you're feeling this way.
Yeah. But do you feel that you let that part of yourself emerge, or you have a kind of persona when you are within your role of leading all those women?
Yeah, so I think I was very, like, my role as being like the chairperson of these meetings, I could step into it and turn up and be visible for that, because that's my job, and I guess that's what I get paid for. But at home, I was just, you know, and my husband has said, he goes, you give everything to those women. You go to the work and I come home and I don't know who you are, you know. And I'm like, well, you don't know who you are. I don't know who I am right now. But I found from the being around those women and, you know, a couple of other communities that I'm part of, it's slow. It's not going to happen overnight, finding yourself. But you can, and the more we talk about it, the more visible we become, and we don't have to hide in the shadows.
No, and that's why community is so important.
Yeah.
I have a question for you, Sam. So it does, you know, I do talk from a style perspective, and I think it's really important that women, you know, take a step back and think about how they want to express themselves, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not just about the clothes you wear; it's about who, you know, we are. We use fashion as a tool. But you also, you know, you mentioned about losing yourself. Was it gradual, or was it just one day?
No, it was gradual. I didn't even realise. I didn't even realise, you know, that my clothes were literally getting greyer. They were literally getting safer. That colour was being just like you know, it's almost like a metaphor, isn't it? The colour going out of our young, vibrant lives, you know. And I remember listening to, it it was on some movie or something, you know, the song Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend, and it goes, men grow cold as girls grow old and we all lose our charms in the end.
Oh, no.
And I remember like almost crying, but really being upset by that lyric. And it was, and then I'm just like, just a sense of not knowing who I was anymore. A sense of not knowing who I was.
Yeah, and what did you do, Sam, about it? Well, how, when you became aware of like that shift, that disconnection with yourself?
Okay, a few different, like initially I just wallowed in it. You know, just this is what menopause is all about. Then this is what it is. This
like a lost battle, like we have to get
this
through
is
it.
Crap. It's something that's it. It's something we have to get through, like
silently.
Silently, without shut up because it's icky to speak about. Instead of actually, it's not about me trying. I'm still in there. But it's not about fading out. It's about blossoming. And you mentioned earlier today when we were speaking about kind of that chrysalis and just emerging. The caterpillar was fabulous and the butterfly is fabulous. They're all versions of us,
yes,
right?
They are.
And it's just about learning to reclaim yourself, seeing
a different version.
A different version of yourself.
You.
A different...
The person who's evolved from their 30s, 40s, and now in their 50s.
That's it. And not looking back, looking forward. And hence why I think so many women do. This is a period in their life, certainly their 40s, when they start to reinvent, because we've kind of got our ducks in a row. You know, we've had the career, we've had we've achieved the stuff with the money or whatever it was. And now is the chance to just, okay, what do I want to do now? And it's almost like we're allowed to do it.
Yeah, what do you enjoy doing? Right? Connecting with that.
Yeah, it's so it's for me it was a very gradual shift. But it was also, I was in a beautiful situation where I run all these groups and I have about 155 members, and I could see it. I was privileged that I could see it in the women I was surrounded by, who were business women with their own business like myself, and I could see the women embracing it.
But what do you think shift in those women when they find their tribe? Well, what is the catalyst, you think?
The catalyst is they're seen, they're heard, they're understood. They're not hiding in the rooms. They are literally, the connection almost is the catalyst, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but I think we are wired to live in tribes.
Yes.
You know, I think it's a very important like part of our life. We can't live in isolation, and I think like our nervous system as well take a toll when we try to thrive and to do everything alone.
Yes.
So then when we find our tribe and we see that we have that support, then our nervous system comes down.
Yes.
And we feel much better because we have this support system. So I think like there is a strong message that we want to send to our listeners that like we have to be connected to others. We are stronger if we are connected to others.
Totally. In whatever way you feel that you can do that.
And I think they can be different groups and tribes to support, you know, a woman's different needs.
Yeah.
You know, like your girlfriends are very important to you, and, you know, they're people that you can talk to and share with. But at the same time, your business contacts and your, you know, our networking group, and also if you're working in corporate, you know, your work friends there, you know, we all have different communities that...
Definitely. I think, Sabrina, we can share as well our experience. We both live abroad as well.
Yes.
You lived in New York. I lived in Singapore and Hong Kong. But what was your journey in about creating communities? Even if we were both younger, not through perimenopause, but it's...
So I moved to New York when I was, I think, 30, or just before my 30s. And I did work in corporate. And I used to travel Monday to Thursday. And when I got pregnant and decided to then quit my job, I felt very much alone, because the friends I had were weekend friends or work colleagues or my husband's friends. I didn't really have my own tribe.
Yeah.
And it was only when I gave birth and I joined a stroller-sized class that I met other women. And we then connected, went for breakfasts, lunch once a week. But I felt I felt so isolated as soon as the baby came, you know, dealing with all those feelings. But as soon as I connected with my tribe, and I'm still friends with those girlfriends today, but it really did help me thrive.
Just you feel it you feel it in your heart. I can see it in your face as you're talking there.
Yeah.
It's so important.
It's very important. I remember when I arrived in Singapore and Hong Kong, I mean, the first 6 months, I dedicated myself to recreate my social life. And I think it's very important. You can't like omit, you can't live by yourself. And I think now that I'm listening to you talking, Sam, when I arrived in London, I didn't have family. I didn't have many friends. And I think coming to those networking group with you, WIBN, helped me like starting creating like my network.
Yeah.
You know, because I didn't know many people.
Yeah. And I think it's just a question of, sometimes people are like, oh, you've got to be a confident type. You've got to be like an extrovert person to go to like networking. And not at all. Not at all. I would say most of the women aren't extrovert, but what you have to do is, if you are feeling lost and lonely and you haven't got anybody to talk to about all the feelings that you might have about menopause or whatever it is, you can't sit back and wait for people to come to you. You do have to just put yourself out there a little bit. And that doesn't have to be walking into a room of strangers. That can be just picking up a phone and texting an old friend and saying, hey, do you want to go for a walk or do you fancy having a coffee? Just connecting in some way.
I actually think it's safer to go to one of your groups.
Do you?
And connect, because everyone there is for a purpose. It's structured.
Yeah.
And so it's less scary to be there and just, you know, connect to the women that are there.
Because you're allowed to be. That's what you're there for.
Yeah.
Everyone I mean, women are themselves, I think. I think no one plays a game or no one has an agenda. And I think what's lovely about your groups is that, like, it's not just about doing business. We are all, we want to expand our businesses, but like, it's about really creating strong connections.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's key, I think.
Yeah.
You know, in the long run.
I think, you know, just in our last meeting, it was amazing. One of the ladies was talking about how she came there and she was ready for her reinvention.
Yes.
Yet she hadn't quite got there. But when she came to the group and she met other women and she put herself out there, you know, a little bit each time, she figured out what exactly her business was going to be.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good message, is that, you know, your reinvention in midlife, you know, I think we should embrace it. But it may not come at the, you know, you as a person do not need to find that in yourself. Sometimes you need to take the time to speak to other people before, you know,
yes, exactly.
before you figure out what you want to do.
Yeah, it's definitely Shamina. And I think like there is as well an inner narrative that we can have, or a mindset about like this good girl conditioning.
Yeah.
That we can, I mean, that is very much ingrained within ourselves. Like, oh, we have to be a good mother and we have to be a good child to our parents. And then suddenly like we are left behind.
Yes, we're left behind.
Right?
Yes.
So because we give priorities to the others all the time. And then suddenly what happens? We realize like,
who am I?
Yeah, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, that's
Where am I
how
heading?
how you get to that point where you look in the mirror and it's not, you know, it's not that your body's changed, but something inside you has changed. And that's when you don't recognize who that person is anymore.
And I think that goes back to that we're not, when I see people who have reinvented themselves or coming to the networking group for connection, it is, and I've lost my thread of what I was going to say.
Brain fog.
That's all right. That's all right. Can I talk about hormones then?
Yes, perfect timing.
You know what happens? I'm going to share something with you because like hormones are all over the place during those like 10 years, and estrogen levels fluctuate, and basically the estrogens are like our caring hormones. Is the caring hormone, but what happens is that because it drops, we don't feel like you want to care about everyone anymore. We just want to turn inwards and
okay.
to care for ourselves. So this is what happens, like this subtle, like hormonal, not subtle hormonal shift, a big storm, but in sometimes there's a subtle, like energetic shift that happens.
Yeah.
And it could be explained even physiologically.
Okay. Yeah.
I think what Sandra's really trying to say is that midlife is the time for your reinvention, because
Definitely.
you can actually walk away and say, you know what, I'm going to do this for myself.
Yes.
And that time that I would be cooking the shepherd's pie and getting stressed out, it can wait.
Yeah,
and so we leave more time for ourselves.
And I see with the women who come and that they've often worked in corporate and then they've had this shift. It is the job that they're now doing or the path that they're now following isn't chasing the bucks anymore. It is about 9 times out of 10, it's about something that they feel passionate about now. It's about something for them. This job's for them because they want to make a difference. They want to, whether it's to how women look and feel about themselves or women's health. Yeah, it is that real sense of...
You're right, Sam. I think it's like about like being true to yourself, finally, you know?
Yeah.
Finally thinking like, that's it. But I think there is this like dichotomy between like being in an action mode and doing, and as well being only. So I think it's about like reconnecting to ourselves first.
Yeah.
And understanding, as you said,
Yes.
Sam, right? And Sabrina.
I definitely think it's reconnecting to yourself first.
Definitely.
And, in terms of like wardrobe, it's well said. Dress for the job you want, right?
Yes,
Rather
yes,
than the
yes.
job you have. And so saying, I will wait until I make that next step in my career or figure out what I'm trying to do, and then I'll invest in myself. It needs to, you need to shift that in your head and say, you know what, I'm going to dress in a way that I want to be seen and be more visible. And then, when I attract that energy from other people and give it out myself, then I will, find where I'm going with my life.
Yeah, it feeds itself. It's lovely to see. I feel so privileged. I can see people. That there's one lady I think of, and I met her maybe 10 years ago, and she worked in quite a male-dominated profession. She worked in kind of, I don't want to. She might not want me to talk about, but let's say she worked in construction, and I remember her coming to the meetings, and she was quite a petite woman, and she held herself small, so she seemed smaller than she actually was, and she always, I'm going to say, I hate the word dowdy, but she almost dressed to be invisible. She dressed in greys and blacks. And just everything about her, the way she
was hiding.
She was hiding. And she was almost apologising for the job that she was doing. And she must have been at the time, I don't know, in her she was probably about 8-9 years older than me at the time. And I didn't have the understanding of the menopause. And the shift that I saw in her within a year was like in every level, like she literally looked taller. She wore bright colours. Her business wasn't just flourishing. She'd taken up this other pursuit that she was really, she was like this amazing gardener and she was showing stuff.
What do you think happened?
It was like, and then the business was flowing to her as well. And she has always been a great champion of mine. And, she's like, finding networking, she goes, was what I needed. Because she moved to this country as well, actually. That was the other thing. She moved to this country, didn't know that many people. And she's like, I've just learnt so much. I've been able to blossom. And she's been part of the network for about 12 years. She says, I'm never going to leave. You do know that. But it is literally beautiful. She is like a different
woman.
A different woman, and for her, it was like, I found the support. I found the people I needed to be around.
I found my tribe.
I also think, I've never asked her, but she was also at that period, I think she was going through the
menopause. Interesting.
Yeah, it's...
So she took her transformation and, soared with it.
Ran with it.
When I moved back to London after being in New York for 11 years. So I had already started my business, and I came here. And one of my girlfriends who I worked in consulting with way back when, we've known each other, since our 20s, I said to her, listen, what do I need to do? Like, I'm feeling so out of sorts. I feel so different. I've changed as a person. I had my kids in New York, and now I feel like I don't know like who I am and who I should be in London right now and where my business is going. And she said, well, look, you should join WIBN and you're going to meet other women. And so I joined the group in Marylebone, and I was quite shy. And then unfortunately COVID happened. And so then I finished my membership, it was on Zoom, and I thought I wouldn't come back. And then, I don't know, I woke up one morning and I think I reached out to you, Sam.
Yeah.
And I was like, I used to be a member.
Remember me?
Yeah, remember me. It was you were running that group now, and I'm, stepped into it. And I feel like it has given me so much more confidence, because you're trying out new things in the group too. You're trying to sell yourself in a different way. And, I was lucky enough to meet Sandra at a meeting 6 months ago. And now we have done something which is so passionate to us both.
Yeah.
And, it's amazing because you can keep reinventing yourself as you progress during midlife.
Yeah, and it's the safe space. And I think in an environment like that, there isn't sometimes... Other friends can be judgmental without meaning to be. Oh, and what are you this week then? What's they don't get it, and sometimes as a businesswoman, being around people who get it, it's.
Well, as a solopreneur, it's hard, right? Who are you talking to? Like I talk to the dog sometimes. He doesn't give me very good advice, but
it's lonely.
you need to have someone you can bounce off ideas other than
back to
your
the
husband,
theory.
your dog, your girlfriend, someone who's actually in it, who can say, hey, why don't you try this?
Yeah. Back to
Beautiful
connection.
thing can come out of those like
Really
connections.
beautiful things.
I mean, we are the proof of it, right?
Yeah.
We never expected to launch a podcast, a workshop.
I know.
And then,
And on paper, it's like stylist, over here, nutritional advice, energy. Okay, where's the common ground there? Well, we're common ground because we're women with our own businesses. We care passionately about certain topics.
Well, I think something we all do together is, we help women rise.
Yeah.
That's the common theme, whether it's in, nutrition, mindset, energy, helping them find, themselves or, thrive in their business. And for me, really helping them, stop feeling invisible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think this is the common point, and this is where we meet basically, and we have this 360 degrees view about women and perimenopause and menopause.
Yeah.
So Sam, I have a question for you. Do you have 3 tips that you would give someone, a listener who's thinking of, I want to do this, but I'm unsure? 3 tips that you would share so they can start their midlife reinvention? Yeah,
I think, and it all revolves around connection. One of them I kind of almost said before, and it's almost on the base level. If you are feeling like invisible, if you are feeling that quiet loneliness, just reach out to anybody in any way to have a conversation. So from texting that friend to reconnect to because there's nothing worse than just doom scrolling and the connection that you're going to get on social media just isn't the same, No.
Definitely
so
not.
reach out to in any way that you can connect would be one, because it's all about conversations and it's all about feeling seen and wanted. And I think I would say also, it's almost like the classic things. Because the other beautiful thing about midlife is reconnecting with your true passions, and that's something else I see. I see people, I always wanted to do creative writing, or I always wanted to take up tennis. So I always wanted to sing. I've got a lousy voice, but I always wanted to sing. So I joined a group called, I don't even know if it still exists, but called Courage to Sing. And they used to meet at Pineapple Studios. And it was a real mixed bag of us. And I would just go for an hour and a half. And we'd just sing, and we'd learn how to sing these songs. And I always had it in my head, I just want to be able to do one song well at karaoke. And it was like the biggest joy, the biggest, and I didn't tell any of my friends I was doing it. And that became, for that kind of term, my people, my community. We went out for a drink afterwards. And so I think what I'm saying is just find where is your joy and go and be part of it. So whether that's yoga, whether it's tennis.
It's the power to dare.
Yes,
Right?
to dare.
Yes.
To just do it. Just turn up without, without hope or agenda, as they say in Love Actually, and just, but connect. Just connect with people, and it takes away that kind of lonely.
I know when I go to the gym with my girlfriends, I have a better workout. Not because I'm pushing myself harder, but I know that afterwards I'm going to go and get a coffee with my girlfriends, or they're just there in the room. There's that connection.
Yeah.
Even if it's for a quick 5 minutes after the class to say, hey, how's it going? But then you feel you've connected before you, go and do your work and maybe have a lonely day staring at the computer. But you've done that, and I think you're right. It is important.
Yeah, and I would say thirdly, if you were wanting to get into business networking, you don't have to. So many people wait. Oh, well, I might have to do a pitch at the meeting. I'm no good at public speaking. I'm going to have to talk about myself. I'm no good. Nobody expects.
Exactly.
And actually,
I
nobody's
might have a
interested in
website
the
as
polished
well.
version.
Or I need a website,
Yeah,
I need business cards.
All these things. Do you know what? Just take the chance. Show up. Just show up. And even if you feel outside your comfort zone, the woman you sat next to over lunch, and if you don't want to talk about yourself, just ask her about herself. Ask her, because people love to talk about. Show genuine interest in people, and then guess what? They're going to show interest in you, and that's the magic in networking. I see doesn't happen there when everybody's sat around the table saying, "Well, my business is really good for that." It's what happens afterwards. It's the coffees afterwards. It's the little chats over lunch. So just. Get rid of the I need to be polished. Just go.
I need to be
Just
perfect
show
as well.
up.
Don't you think?
Yeah.
Polished.
And I wanted to add that some people might actually be thinking, I don't have anything to share. But you definitely do have something to share. There's always something that someone else is going to find so interesting. Exactly. Whether it's, you used to go to a group and sing at Pineapple Studios.
There we are. I said it live on air. Nobody knew that.
It's on record. I was going to ask you to do a few lines.
No. I never got any good, but it was fun. But and I think I heard a lovely quote the other day about, and again, this kind of almost relates back to connection in a loose way, is people may not remember what you said, they may not remember what you do, but they will remember how you make them feel.
Definitely. They remember your energy.
They remember your energy, Mrs. Energy over here. Yeah, but it's true.
It's true,
But it's true, right? And if you go to whatever, whether that's networking or whatever, and you just show up, you just be genuinely you, be vulnerable if that involves being vulnerable, and just ask questions, and just, it will come back to you, and then you're going to feel connected. You're going to feel all this just feeds your soul. You don't even realize it's happening. It's not like it's strategic. I must reinvent myself.
You don't have to show up with an agenda.
Yes.
Because you never know what's going to come back to you. Because you might give something to someone, but what's going to come back to you, it's something else.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's a kind of like circle.
Yeah.
Like the energy circulates. Doesn't mean like if you do good to someone, then just this person will do good to you. It might be someone else.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Karma.
Yeah, karma,
around,
exactly.
So Sam has a very special offer for our listeners. Yes, do you want to?
It would be. I meet so many different women, and it would be my pleasure to have any of your fabulous listeners to come along as a visitor to, as you said, I run 12 different events, 11 in London, one in Colchester. Come along, be my guest, and experience it.
Yes.
So I'll waiver the cost of being a visitor and just come and connect. And as I said, you don't have to be polished. You don't have to be perfect. Just come and enjoy being part of a community.
Yeah, so ladies, if you are listening to us and you are ready for your own reinvention, please take the leap.
Yeah.
And if you mention hormones and heels, Sam.
Yes. Mention hormones and heels, and I'll fling that door open for you.
Yeah, and there's always a tasty lunch.
Always.
Yes.
Always.
Yes. So thank you so much for joining us, Sam. For our listeners, if you would like to, leap into that reinvention, we also have our workshop, From Invisible to Visible, and we have a wait list. So the notes are in, the details are in the show notes.
Yes, and it's not just another course, right, Sabrina? It's really an experience that we want to offer to the woman that wants to join us. So put your name on the wait list if you are interested. Spaces are limited, and the next course will happen soon.
Yes. And thank you for listening. Please follow us on Hormones and Heels and share this with a friend who you think would love to listen.
Thank you very much, Sam, for being with us today.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.